Hey everyone, this is Jeanette with Jan Panda Treasures and more of an 1899 Farm Journal reading. I'll read directly out of this journal that we have here. Anyway, so we are all the way up to April 25th, 1899. And I found out that we actually looked at a town here. It was called Wapello. Anyway, I can do more research on that particular town, but it's a town in Louisa County, Iowa. So I thought that was cool that now we have a place. We have characters, we have a place, we have an idea of what fashion was. Hopefully we can figure out what recipes they used. But then I touched on the last episode about how did they get around. So judging by what they have spoken about so far, I was guessing that their mode of transportation would be horse and buggy for the most part. Anyway, so I did do a little bit of a Google search. It just says in 1899, horse-drawn carriages and wagons remained the dominant form of transportation. So during this time that I'm reading about, that's the major mode of transportation. So that's period. That's how they got around. Other modes were steam-powered vehicles, the railroad. San Francisco had cable cars. And then there was also the word automobile was first used in the United States in 1899. So this is basically the transition into motor vehicles. So we'll see what happens and what they write about, maybe, something. And then there's also the history, what was going on in 1899. Everything affected how they lived, as it does now. Anyway, so we ended up at Tuesday, the 25th. So you can imagine this is a house that doesn't have insulation. It's probably a Victorian. People who are living there, I'm guessing at least 5 people actually live in the house. 2 boys, a girl, mama and papa. And I really haven't figured out those characters and how they meld together, but I'm thinking that they're the 3 children, Cyrus, Theodore, or is it Theo, and Nina, and the person who's writing, and Charles. Cyrus is the neighbor. And then they have all these other neighbors that they visit or that come over, or, travelers that, are buying horses or cattle or things like that. So I can imagine that this family writes a lot of letters. So, and there's a lot of work to be done around the house. They have to do a lot of work themselves, but it sounds like they have a hired help inside the house. But they do housework, they do housework, laundry, sewing, patching, which is part of sewing, but it's probably more important than sewing. And baking. Baking's a big deal. Pies and bread are the big items. And their staples would be sugar, flour, stuff that you couldn't actually grow on your farm. Now they do have cattle, they have cows and horses. I know that because of who was born, and there's even a section in here. So it's a working farm. They have help that comes in to either help with the fields, help with the, whatever they need, plowing and all that. So we'll probably see more of that as the spring unfolds into summer and harvest time. So we're going to go through a few seasons here, actually all the seasons, and then some, because I think this may end, well, there's at least a year's worth of writing here. So, all right, that's my introduction. Welcome, welcome. If you have any comments about what was what you were told, maybe in your family line, or if you actually live in this area of Louisa County, Iowa, maybe you know some of the history and what maybe people were doing in Iowa in 1899. So this kind of makes sense. There was an indication that Charles went to Chicago back here somewhere in winter, and she didn't state what the purpose was, but and I don't even know if they live in Wapello, but they mention it as a town, so went to town, and so that's the closest town. Chicago's a 3-hour car, modern day car ride to Chicago. So it was probably a couple of days for Charles to get from this area to Chicago to get a train to go somewhere. I forget where they were going. Or did he get a train close by to go to, I think he went and got a train close by to get to Chicago. So there's another stumbling block there, is now I need to find out where the train station is near Wapello so that he could get on the train to go to Chicago. So I think that's where my mind was. Did he get a train in Chicago? No, he went to Chicago via train. So anyway, stories unfolding. And we all know history. There was a history. 1899 happened. And but there's so many things that happened during that time, and some people were affected or not affected by certain time. So we are still in the Victorian era. Queen Victoria is still monarch during this time, if you are following from England. So this is, I think, beyond prairie life. I think these folks have a nice farmhouse. They have nice land, fertile land, see, this town was founded, I think, in 1839, or it was, I don't know if that was, I read so many things, I don't know if that's when it was declared a state or declared a town. I think it was established in 1939. So some of these folks may have been there since, did I say 1939? 1839. These folks have been there, probably the folks I'm reading about. If somebody was born in 1839 and it's 1899, they would be 60 years old. So this is probably somebody who was born in this area who's writing this. So anyway, on we go. All right. So we ended it on the 25th. I'm going to start it on the 25th, and just to overlap slightly what we were talking about. Okay, Tuesday the 25th, we washed. It was a nice sunshiny day. Forgot my gloves. I am some better of my cold. Theodore took Neil, is that a new one? To John Sterretts. And I drove to town. See, that's what's kind of weird for me, is that I drove to town, but maybe that's a term that they used for, driving your carriage. I don't know. But there's terminology here that we're not used to right now. When we got home, Ed, Will, and Ella Wilson were here. Stayed until bedtime. Windy and cloudy. I'll get you closer here. Windy and cloudy by spells. I made some underwear for Nina. Oh, ooh, I made some underwear for Nina. Haha. Okay, so that's nice. They wear underpants. Anyway, and did a lot of patching. Molly ironed and did most of the housework. So I'm thinking Molly is their hired help. Theodore took Neil to the broker. Okay, took Neil to the broker again. So a broker at that point is probably somebody who deals in livestock. The boys all went to prayer meeting. Nina did not come home until after prayer meeting. Was she wearing her new underwear? I don't know. All right. Thursday, the 27th. And we're still in April. Windy and looks like rain early in the morning. Oh, yes, it did rain terribly. 2 hard showers. Theodore went for Nina in the evening. Theo went home without his supper. Theodore and I went to town this afternoon. Theodore took John. Horse. Is it horseshoeing? Horse. Oh, Tina. Theodore took John. I don't know. House, home, horse, home. I don't know. It's quite possible that, horses break fence lines and they wander up to the house. And then, of course, it's like, if you had a dog and got into the neighbor's yard, ended up on the neighbor's porch, and the neighbor, who's probably a good neighbor, brought the dog home to you and told you to patch the frickin' fence. All right. This is Friday the 28th. This is a warm, cloudy day. Looked like rain several times, but did nothing but sprinkle. Theodore took Neil to Mr. Sterrett's again. What is this thing with Neil and Sterrett's and Theodore taking a... Nor today, Carrie went to preaching. So Carrie's one of the kids. Theodore is one of the kids. Nina's one of the kids. Charles is possibly the dad. And Mom is who's writing this. So I'm guessing 5 permanent people in this house. Okay. Carrie went to preaching. Okay. Theodore went to choir practice. Nina did not come home until after choir practice. Okay, Nina's got a sweetheart. That's what I'm guessing. We'll see. We'll see how this unfolds. Because I haven't read any of this. This is the first time I'm reading this. Cloudy and warm. We baked bread. See? Bread. Pies, and cake. I wonder what kind of cake. See, that's why I'm going to have to look up some of these recipes. What were the common types of things that were baked, cooked, and things like that. Old Black. I don't know what that word is. Is it B-A-S-K? Basque? I think this is one of their horses. I'm thinking a nice, healthy, muscular black stallion. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Thea came back this morning. He and Eldred, Theo, sorry, I keep saying Thea, but because I read the A. Theo came back this morning. He and Eldred, that's a different name. plowed. Okay, he and Eldred plowed, so they do have help that comes in. Eldred went home at noon, so they probably gave him a nice lunch and sent him on his way. Molly went home to help Mary clean house next week. Molly's kind of like, I don't know if she is the hired help in the house or if she's related or how that all works out. I don't know. Maybe she's one of the kids. I just don't know. Molly's now popping up here. Carrie went to preaching this afternoon. He cut Theodore's hair. Oh, they cut each other's hair. Oh my gosh. That's fabulous. Before he went. So this is Saturday, so they're getting ready for Sunday. Probably wants to look nice. Theodore is wanting to look nice for church. See, all of these people, when they meet, they live on farms. I've done research for my own family. They all live on farms. The only time they get together is when they go to church. So Theodore wants a nice haircut on a Saturday before he goes to church. So who knows what's going on there. All right. Cloudy and a little cooler, sprinkled several times during the day. Theodore, Carrie, and I went to church in the morning. The boys went at night. Theodore, Carrie, and I. I thought these were her kids, but remember, sometimes they go at night too. So a lot of times there's even possibly every day there might be 2 church services. Who knows? Now we're at May 1st. Oh my gosh. I get excited when I'm reading a book and a milestone happens. Oh my. Okay, Monday, the 1st of May. I love this. Look at how she writes the first. I mean, I don't know if I can, I'll expand it. That's probably easier. Look at this. Look how she writes May. Oh my gosh. Back then it was more like calligraphy when they were writing. 1 of May. Wow. It was like, finally, we can really talk about spring. I don't want to be too small. I want you to be able to see the writing. Whilst I read, Monday, 1 of May, there was 2 cattlemen here for dinner. I did the housework, washed a little, and ironed what I washed. That's funny, W-A-S-H-E-D. The wind blew hard until in the evening it laid. So that must mean it stopped. All right, I think I'll read a little more. I'm like 18 minutes in. I probably will want to make at least complete a page. All right. So why is she making Nina some new underwear? Hope chest? Maybe she's engaged. See, we don't know all the details. They may be talking about something else that's not being written down, you know? So all they're doing is talking about the weather and the cattle and who worked and who didn't. And underwear. Pie baking. Okay. All right, I think I'm getting the gist of this. All right, Tuesday, May 2nd. Cloudy and rainy by spells. That's not shells, that's spells. Cloudy and rainy by spells. I did little except housework. So housework can be anything. It could be washing windows. It could be cleaning baseboards, mopping floors, dusting, doing dishes, things like that. So it just depends on what was needed to be dealt with. Theo plowed when it was not raining. Theodore Chord. See, Theo and Theodore. I don't know. They're not the same person. So Theo lives there and Theo vice versa. I don't know. We'll have to pay more attention. I wasn't paying attention to Theo and Theodore. Because Thea is not going to plow. Theo is going to plow. When it was not raining, Theodore chored some and attended to the stock. Gardened some. Theodore and I went to town after supplies. So this is where they go to Wapello, which is probably the closest town to where these folks live. And they probably had to go by horse and carriage. And she was probably wearing an outfit like this. Maybe less ruffled on the bottom because she's just going to town. So anyway, and who knows what they were buying, fabric, thread, flour, sugar, unless she tells us here. Okay, Wednesday the 3rd, right here. A warm, windy day. Theodore and I drove over to Cyrus's, then home again. He went to town after we got home. I baked bread, did all the housework. She baked bread and did all the housework. Oh my God. No way in my life that I can do both in one day. The boys all went to prayer meeting. I made 2 aprons, and she sewed. Oh my gosh, 2 aprons. And I think there's a picture of aprons in here. See if I can find one real quick. Because there's day wear, evening wear, home wear. And I can only imagine that aprons were used a lot to keep your clothing snazzy, because they only did wash on one day. So what I can imagine, Saturday's wash day kind of thing. Or maybe they don't. Maybe, these people, well, here's what to me looks like an apron. Might be one in this one. But their aprons were full-length aprons, and they had a bib, and they were probably made from flour sack fabric. And I'll bring up an example of flour sack fabric on one of my next videos. But just looking, this particular one's probably high-end fashion. See if I can find something with an apron. I'll look for a picture of, when they were at home, what they would wear, and it was mostly consisted of maybe a house dress and an apron over it. I don't see that in here, so I will look for that. Alrighty, that's a lot of work in one day. Of course, they got up before dawn because a lot of those boys had to go and get fed, for one thing, before they went out to tend the cows and milk and do a lot of stuff. All right. Thursday the 4th. Molly came this morning before breakfast. I fixed my wrapper. Okay, so she's got it. She's working on a coat or a wrap. And several other small jobs of fixing old clothes. Okay, so it could be possible, because this is right out of the Victorian ruffle, outfits and things like that, that they're maybe retailoring stuff to make it look more sleek. and several other small jobs of fixing old clothes. Theodore drove to town. I went with him. So she's fixing stuff and all kinds of little stuff she's doing before she and Charles, or Theodore, get into the carriage and drive to town. We bought Dean home. Dean? That's another. We brought Dean home. Okay, with us. Dean or Jean? She. Dean. Must be Jean. Dean. I don't know. She stayed all day. Irvin came after her in the evening. So Irvin knows Jean, and he came and picked her up. The young folks all went to Alex. Alex, okay. After supper, Molly and Thea did not go. Theo. This is, no, Molly and Theo. So Molly, who's Molly? She writes Molly here with an IE and Molly here with a Y. There might be a Theo, Theodore, Molly, and Molly. Okay. Molly did most of the housework in the forenoon. So in the morning, Molly did most of the housework. So Molly with a Y is probably somebody that they hired to take care of the house. Okay. Something hand is sore. Is it her hand? Who's writing this? Hand is sore. Molly went and helped Mary put down a carpet in afternoon. They're putting down carpets in the afternoon. So what they do is they'll take an area rug, take it out, hang it, and beat it just to get the dirt out. I don't think they had vacuum cleaners. If they did, they were probably hand pushed. If they had something that fancy. Bird and children were here a while this afternoon. So Bird is a nickname, and I have it written down here. What's Bird's last name? I can't find it on my list. All right, well, moving on. Saturday the 6th looks like rain, but did not rain. It looks like rain, but it did not rain. Carrie, now she spells Carrie with an IE here. Previously, she spells it with an EY or a Y or something, which is fine. We all forget and we just write. Went to Iowa City. Okay. This is another big clue that they're in Iowa. Cyrus came over in the evening, and Theodore hitched up and took Molly to town. Cyrus and I went along. Then we took him home. It was, does that say 10 when we got home? That's pretty late when you have to get up before dawn. Okay, so we are at 28 minutes. I'll go and then maybe another couple, well, I'll read this whole page and then I will close. And maybe we can all do some homework and figure some of this stuff out. You can write in the comments what you think, what you feel might be happening. But this is now springtime. They're in full spring. It's raining, weather. Sometimes it's nice. So anyway. And they made their own underwear. It commenced raining about 8 in the morning, rained until 11, slacked up, and then in the afternoon, it poured rain. So in the afternoon, it's raining cats and dogs. Theodore and Nina went to church in the morning, and he went at night, rain and all. Oh my gosh. Nina did not go to the store this morning. She washed. I did most of the housework. We all went to town after supper. I went to Alva's. The others rode around until 9. Then we came home. What does that mean? They were cruising? They were doing some 1899 cruising with, the horse team and the carriage. Maybe they had just one. For that many people, they would have to have at least 2 horses. Tuesday the 9th. It was foggy early in the morning, then cleared off by degrees, and the sun was out the most of the afternoon. Nina and I was fixing her silk waist. Oh, so she's got some fancy dress stuff. Because we all know they're all in pieces. Okay, not you had a shirt waist, a skirt, a blouse, all kinds of parts and pieces still. Okay, Wednesday the 10th, Theodore and Cyrus went to Burlington. That's in Iowa. That's one of the big towns around Wapallo. They probably pronounce it something else. But, and I couldn't find the correct pronunciation marks for me to pronounce it correctly. But Burlington, Iowa is one of the big towns. So you have Wapello here. Then you have all kinds of towns that dot. And one of them is Burlington. So, and then way up there is Chicago, way up there. You have to cross Illinois to get there. So, and they're actually on it's like a border town because the river comes through here. I mean, it does like weird things, but they're like a border town. I imagine they can get fresh fish, that kind of thing. So here's your towns. You got major towns around here, Chicago up here, and this little town. And there's this huge waterway, this huge river. So it's a river town. Kind of like my little river town. All right. Okay. So Theodore and Cyrus went to Burlington. Cyrus came home on the 9. So 9 o'clock, Cyrus came home at night. Theodore stayed all night. Theo went to town after supper. Carrie went to prayer meeting. Nina went to town after dinner. So Nina went to town. So she probably went to Wapello. Theo plowed for Cyrus. It rained. Look at his tiny writing. It rained all the after part of the night and 2 or 3 showers today. Okay, Molly Andrews. Okay, so Mollie Andrews. So there's another name. So it might not be this Molly that lives here. This is a Molly Andrews with an IE. I mean, I have first and last names. It wouldn't be hard to do like a check, from Ancestry or something. Theo plowed for Cyrus. The girls and I were fixing some of their clothes for the wedding. Wedding? Okay, so I paused and took a break, but it says here, Theo plowed for Cyrus. The girls and I were fixing some of their clothes for the wedding. So, I wonder whose wedding. Molly went to town for some things. Mary and Mag came in the afternoon, brought Mary's plants down. Brought Mary's plants. I don't know what that means. The youngsters went something after summer. I don't know what that word is. The first letter eludes me. After supper, it has been a nice day. Okay, so now I'm wanting to get into the types of food they ate. What does an 1899 wedding look like? So we may need to read some more of this before I get really involved in an 1899 wedding, what they would wear for wedding clothes, when they would have a wedding, that kind of thing. But since Nina's getting new underwear, I'm wondering if Nina is the one that's getting married. Well, we'll see, because it's now Thursday, May 11th. So we went from the 26th of April to May 11th. That will be the title. And I need to figure out, okay, foods. What did their underwear look like? That might be, it's going to be very modest. I'll see what their underwear was, because that's interesting. And what else was I going to look up? Not sure. I know I mentioned it earlier in the video. If you can remember what it was besides food and underwear, and weddings, what I may have said. So if you put that word, please put that word in the chat. I guess I could also rewatch it, but then what kind of fun would that be for you guys? Gotta stump the host. All right, this is cool. Yeah, we're doing this. So we're into May of 1899. And just remember all the stuff that was going on. It's still a Victorian era, because Queen Victoria didn't pass until, I think, 1906? So there, you can imagine the Victorian houses and things like that. So let's just dive into the past and take pictures with our iPhones. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and like it, subscribe, share this with a friend who loves history, and maybe they'll have some input. All right, thank you guys so much.